was in high school, and like a lot of people, I didn't feel like I belonged with anybody. I was an outcast. And I started just kind of migrating towards the outsider kind of crowd, and they happened to be smoking weed and drinking. At that time, I was just south of Atlanta, and instead of going to high school, we would smoke weed and go skate downtown Atlanta. And that's where it all started. It gave me that sense of belonging, finally, with a crowd of people that I could relate to. I really wasn't trying to suppress any kind of feelings or anything at that point, but it just made me feel like I was part of the cool crowd. I think that the first time I realized that, it was a few years later. I had progressed from weed and alcohol to using ecstasy and crystal meth. And there was one time I had been up for numerous days, and just after about the third day, you start hallucinating real bad, and I just had a really bad experience and kind of got put in check by my girlfriend's mom, and got kicked out of that house and was homeless, and had to relocate to my father's house about 3 hours away. And that was the first time that I realized that something might be going on. My first rehab was when I was 16 or 17. I think my parents found out, or my mom found out, that I was smoking weed, and they freaked out and said, "Go to rehab." And that was 24 years ago. I mean, I was in a year-long or a 6-month-long rehab, and it was court ordered, so I was forced to be there. And I learned a lot of stuff in there, but my heart wasn't in it. I kind of didn't really fake it while I was in there, but I was trying to soak up all the knowledge that I was able to receive. But as soon as I got out, I knew I was going to get high, and within 2 hours I was high. 2 months prior to coming here, I overdosed on heroin and died. I obviously brought me back. Went to a rehab, made it 3 weeks, talked my way out of it, went home, relapsed again. Started hiding a lot of stuff from my wife while we were in marriage counseling. It all came to a head one night. I had been doing ice, heroin, cocaine, all this stuff for numerous days, and it came to a head. Everything came out to my wife about what was going on. It got nasty. I packed a lot of stuff up in my car. Didn't know where I was going to go. Completely hopeless. Was driving around Pensacola trying to figure out what I was going to do. And while I was doing this, my mood and feelings and everything just kept getting lower and lower and lower, to the point where I was just in total despair. I parked in an area and was trying to figure out what to do. And I had two choices at that point. One was to completely end everything. I've been through a lot of stuff in my life, but I've never gotten to a point where ending everything was an actual choice. Like, I never considered it, and at that point, it was a viable solution. I've gone through getting clean and getting everything back, I don't know how many times now, and to just lose it. And at some point, and it was at that point, I was done with it. Something inside of me was tugging at my heart for me not to give up. I picked up the phone and called a rehab that I thought was here in Pensacola, but it was actually in South Florida, and talked to them, and then found out that they weren't in Pensacola, so I had to call somebody else, and ended up talking to Kat here. Explained to her my situation, and she continued to call me back numerous times. That is something I look back on right today, and I know that saved my life. Ended up coming here. While I was coming here, we had a hurricane hitting, so Barnett likes to say it's a good I forgot what the word is, analogy for my addiction. It's a hurricane, and it damn sure it was a hurricane. So that's how I got here. I'm in the parking lot, and my plan of how I was going to end everything was just to, there's a road here in Pensacola, Scenic Highway, and there's a bridge that I-10 is on, and there's train tracks down at the bottom. I was just going to drive my car right down there. I ended up calling Kat. She talked me into coming to GBR that night. That's something that definitely saved my life. Ended up coming in and going straight to detox. Barnett met me at the door and brought me into detox. While I was in detox, I look back at it now, and it is one of the most darkest periods that I've ever been in. And that was before I came to learn everything that I have at GBR. As painful and dark and just miserable as those 3 days were, it's something that I look back at now and I'm extremely grateful for. I've kicked dope multiple times before. It really wasn't a bad withdrawal, but it was something deeper than that. It was more mental. It was just I got to see the true nature of my head, all the fears that I had inside my head, and just shame that I had for everything that I've done, not only recently with my marriage, but throughout my life. It was a painful time. I mean, I was completely whacked out of my head when I came in here. I mean, on multiple substances and and the first thing that I noticed was why everybody was so damn happy. I had never been to a treatment facility where everybody's happy like that. And from my background, I'm reading into this, and I'm just like, what the hell? What's going on here? And weeks later, it starts kicking in that nobody's being fake. It genuinely, people are kind. All the previous treatment facilities that I've been into, it was, all right, here's your workbook. Here's all the reasons, your triggers, why you might use. And every single place, it's the exact same stuff, just over and over and over. When I got out of detox, the first thing that I remember is just hearing about the 3 principles. I had no idea what they were, never heard about them my entire life. I had no idea what anybody was talking about. And then the next thing I remember is one of the counselors saying, well, you can't try to learn this process, it just happens. The more you try it, the less it happens. So I think what happened for me was that I finally went inside myself to find what was causing all this pain. What I needed to find inside myself that I was trying to find everywhere else. And every place else that I've been, they might have been trying to get me to that place, but I was never able to get there. I've gone through life feeling like all the experiences and traumas that I've gone through made me a damaged soul, that I was broken. I went as far as embracing that brokenness. In some sick way, I was probably proud of it. I never really thought that I wasn't. I came here and just came to the realization after speaking with my counselor a few times that I'm not broken. I'm not screwed up. I've gone through a lot of stuff throughout my life, had some bad experiences. But in no way does that make me broken. It just means that I've gone through some bad experiences. Those negative experiences in life tend to stick in my head more than a lot of other stuff. And that kind of shapes how I see everything and look at life. So I wasn't broken. I just didn't know how to process everything. I'll start by saying that I'm the type of person that never has those aha moments. So I've kind of been jealous my entire life of people who used drugs all their life and then they just out of somewhere a light switch flicks and bam, they're not using anymore. And I've never been like that. The moment that kind of hit me that something was changing was one morning. I was down on the dock. I get up every morning, watch the sunrise with a few other guests here. And that morning I got up before everybody else and nobody else was out there. I'm sitting at the end of the dock and watching the sun come up. It must have been a weekend because there were no cars on the bridge, so it was just completely quiet. And I closed my eyes and did what I probably heard in the class either earlier that week or previous couple days of being present in the now. Don't get stuck in your head worrying about what may have happened in the past or what might happen coming up in the future, but just be present. And something inside me was telling me to do that. So I shut my eyes and just started feeling everything. I felt the wind blowing on me, heard the birds flying by, heard the little waves crashing on the rocks, and I opened my eyes. And when I opened my eyes, there was, excuse me. The sun was coming up, and it was just beautiful. At that, at that moment, I felt a sense of happiness that I had never felt before. And it wasn't any kind of happiness that I've had before. It was something much deeper than being able to go out and buy something or get high or just get anywhere else. It was, I think, what they were trying to tell me about finding that happiness that I was searching outside, and I found it inside that morning. That's when everything started to change. The only time I've ever really read a lot was when I was incarcerated. I read a lot in there. But in here, there was a lot of reading that was suggested, and the first few weeks, my mind still wasn't healed enough to read. And the following weeks after that, the first book I picked up was The Missing Link by Sydney Banks. It's a really easy read. There's just so many things in there that resonated and that I needed to hear. And it was simple. And then the next book I read was Second Chance, again by Sydney Banks. And that book kind of explains in real simple words the basis of 3 principles in a story form. Another book that had a profound effect on the way I looked at everything was The Untethered Soul by Michael Singer. Absolutely just, I mean, it had me in tears multiple times.
Have you talked to your wife?
She sees a little bit of different. There's a lot of pain there. She has gone through an overdose, a death, me dying, after only 3 months of being married. There's a lot of distrust and brokenness within the marriage. I think she has seen a change. A lot of areas where I might have blown up in the past or just been short-tempered or just wanting to fight, not really doing anymore. I'm at a place where, as much as I love her, I accept that whatever happens, happens. I have a little bit of control over that. I can do my part in trying to repair the marriage, but past that, it's out of my hands. It's meant to be, it's meant to be. If not, then it's not. Before, I would be obsessing in my thoughts about what all I can do to make this right, and reading different actions or just playing different scenarios in my head, getting stuck in there for days at a time. And I don't do that. I don't do it anymore. I've damaged a lot of relationships, yeah. My father and stepmother and mother have all noticed a pretty big change. I haven't seen them in person, but I've spoken with them over and over and over on the phone while I was in here, and they can definitely sense a change.
You know how they do on TV? They say, "What would you say to your 16-year-old self?" You look back 24 years. What would that kid? If you could have told him about the left turn and the right, what did that kid not know that you know?
I would tell him, love yourself. Just love yourself. No. I didn't have that awareness in other rehabs that I came to obtain here. That was the biggest change. That awareness that I've heard people talk about over the years, but I never really got it until I dove inside myself. And it's that going inside that I think saved me. Because I dealt with a lot of stuff that I never dealt with before. The awareness, once I started seeing how messed up my thoughts were, how I could get fixated on one certain thing, and if it was a negative thing, then I would get on that hamster wheel in my head. And the awareness part of that comes in when I realize that, all right, I'm the true self, who I really am, is much deeper than everything that's going on inside my head. And the one who's feeling sad or feeling like he wants to get high, that, all right, I might feel like I want to get high right then, but I don't have to. I don't have to get stuck on that thought of wanting to get high. I don't have to. Yeah. Instead of getting fixated on that, I just do my best to let it go. That's something that I heard in here constantly when I first got in here of, all right, you got this thought, just let it go. And at the very beginning, it was like, how in the hell do you do that? You just let it go. All right. But it's getting easier and easier. I might not be at that point where I just let it go immediately, but it eventually goes away. Another thing that I kept hearing was, you can't try, the more you try, the less this works. And when I first heard that, what are you talking about? Everything in life is, you try and it works better. Well, the enlightenment, I guess you could say, that I had on the pier that morning, I tried to have another one every time I go out there and fish, and nothing. Because it was such a spiritual moment, I loved it, and I wanted more of it. When I would have bad days in here, I would get into just low moods and be pissed off that I was in that low mood, because previous days I was way up here and I'm just soaking all this stuff in, and I'm stoked. I'm loving it. I'm feeling good, and then something would happen and I'd be all down here, and I'm trying to get out of that. I'm trying to force myself out of that mood, and I realized that whenever I do that, I'm spending more energy trying to fight that mood, and I'm reminding myself that, hey, I'm in a pissed off mood. My counselor we talked about it, and that's when I realized that, okay, it's okay to be in a low spot. Just do your best to embrace it and realize that it's going to go away. And just realize, I realized that when I am in those low moods, that I'm not going to get a whole lot of learning from the world in. And I just embrace it and it'll go away. The first thing I would say would be that nothing is ever worth ending it. That to never give up, no matter how bad it gets. When I made the decision to come here, I had absolutely no idea what I was going into. No idea. I just know that I needed something to save my life. When I got here, I was in shock by how nice the facility is. And it's a program, and I use that term very loosely. I don't like the word program, but it's something that makes you go inside yourself and see that light that's always been there, that I've never been able to find anywhere else until I came here. It's such a positive environment. Everybody that I came in contact with on a daily basis was nothing but kind and positive, and you truly feel that even though you are in a rehab, that you're not a evil person. You're not a bad person. I made a lot of bad choices, and I had a lot of shame for years about that. And then I came to realize that, okay, I might have made bad choices, but that doesn't mean I'm an evil or bad person. I had never figured that out with any other rehab. When I came here, that was the main thing that was causing me to get high. I was kind of guided into a direction, but I did all the work on my own. That is the biggest difference between every other rehab that I've been to and Gulf Breeze Recovery. It's all the work that you're looking inside yourself. And I see a lot of similarities in the 12 steps and here. They both lead you to the same spot, which is inside yourself. Mine, when I always thought that mine was like my brain. What I've come to figure out or learn is that mine is the thing that's powering me, that I call God. That gives me the wisdom, the thing that I should really listen to, but instead I listen to thought. The thought is everything that is perceiving my reality. It's also everything that's going on inside my head that's kind of given a narrative of what's going on everywhere. The consciousness part is just that awareness of everything that is going on inside my head, the awareness that I'm here right now, that I'm alive, I'm on this planet, that I'm experiencing all these different things, and that there is something greater than me that's inside me.